Is September 11th, 2024, the 23rd anniversary of the September 11th attacks at Protestia Studios, and this is an intelligence briefing coming to you from Protestia.com, where you can go to find all the latest in Christian polemics and discernment news. Sign up for our insurgency email blast and support us financially if you would be so kind over at patreon.com/Protestia, starting at $5.95 a month. Let's get into the headlines. First headline at Protestia.com. Greg Locke recounts moments after horrific drive-by on family, stating that he was running around the house like a madman with an AR in his hand and a 9mm in his back pocket. Pastor Greg Locke of Global Vision Bible Church recounted during his sermon yesterday the mayhem that transpired in the aftermath of a crazed gunman unloading an entire magazine of rounds into his garage, car, and home while one of his children was inside in what was a clear attempt to murder him and his family. He explained that he and his wife, Ty, were taking separate vehicles back from a church event, and she was set to arrive at the house before him when the Lord supposedly told her to, quote, get over into the slow lane and just go a little slower. As a result, her arrival home was delayed by several minutes. Obviously, we would, probably disbelieve the direct talking to Greg Locke's wife by God, but Greg Locke has gone from being an independent fundamental Baptist preacher to palling around with the likes of Benny Hinn and the so-called deliverance ministers. And so we would not recommend anything coming out of that camp, yet we are happy that nobody was hurt, and we hope and pray for justice to be done in the situation. Next headline at Protestia.com. Megachurch pastor on FBI's most wanted list surrenders after weeks-long manhunt. This is over in the Philippines. Megachurch quote-unquote pastor and noted heretic Apollo Quiboloy has finally emerged from his compound and surrendered to the police on Sunday, a few days ago, after a weeks-long standoff that saw up to 2,000 officers deployed to help track him down after violent clashes between thousands of his followers, and law enforcement officers caused at least one congregant to die of a heart attack during the melee. A statement from his lawyer said he finally gave himself up because he couldn't stand the turmoil that his standoff was causing his congregants. He is the 71-year-old head of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ Church, a restoration church in the Philippines that claims 4 million members in the country. They believe that only those within their denomination will be saved and that their pastor has a miraculous birth that was foretold by God himself. So we would say that's very clearly a false religion over there. Read more about this at Protestia.com. Next headline at Protestia. Woman claims Grace Community Church defamed and inappropriately put her under church discipline. This coming from the Christian Post. A woman has accused John MacArthur and Grace Community Church of Sun Valley, California, of disciplining her when she sought separation from her husband, claiming now it's defamation. It looks like this is over at the Christian Post. You can go read this at Protestia.com, click over to the Christian Post. But suffice to say, we've been through this, seen this story before where church discipline at Grace Community Church, very clearly a part of what they do, very clearly something they do on Sunday nights, the communion service, is somehow recast as something wrong, and then it turns out not being wrong. So we would advise anybody looking at the story to approach it with a grain of salt. Generally speaking, we have found the church to be in the right on all of these issues that we've investigated, and we would suspect this one would be the same, but we'll follow it and update you when more information becomes available if it does. Next headline at Protestia. Alistair Begg announces he's retiring from senior pastor at Parkside Church during the September 9th evening service. So a couple nights ago, Alistair Begg announced to the congregation of Parkside Church that he'll be formally stepping aside from his role as senior pastor in a year's time. So about a year from now, it sounds like September 2025 is when he is planning on stepping down. Let's listen in to the announcement.
In the last few weeks, I have informed the elders of the church of my decision to relinquish my role as the senior pastor here at Parkside. Not tonight, not tomorrow night, and not for 12 months of nights. But on the 14th of September, 2025, God willing, I will make it that long. I say God willing, and I said to them, no later than, in case they would like to get rid of me sooner than, in which case I'm open, but it's not my plan. Why do this? Well, that particular day will be 50 years since I began with Derek Prime at Charlotte Chapel. It will be 49 years since I was ordained to the gospel ministry, and it will be 42 years from the time that Sue and I had the privilege of beginning ministry here at what was then the chapel in Beechwood. I took a leaf from Derek's book in that, although I was not with him, I recalled that when he made the congregation aware of the fact that he would be stepping down, he did so 12 months in advance. And he did that for the same reason that I've chosen to do it. Number one, to make it clear that this decision is not precipitous. It's not driven by anything of which I am personally aware, other than my ambition to pass the baton, as you say, baton we say, or no, we say baton, but to pass it safely into the hands of my successor. And also to give us time to adjust to the prospect of, and to prepare in a timely way for what this transition will mean. It also gives me time to prepare for a future that doesn't involve coming to this pulpit. That will be a strange future. I will not retire from Christian ministry. God willing, again, I will have opportunities as time and interest and health enables me to be involved in various places and things. Certainly to be more committed and more involved at Truth for Life when I don't have the responsibilities and privileges here. You should also know that Susan and I have come to this decision together, and also with the affirmation of our children.
So, Alistair Begg, perhaps best known for his syndicated radio program, at least outside of his own church, and Truth for Life. He's authored and co-authored several books, including Preaching for God's Glory, Name Above All Names, and The Christian Manifesto. With a reputation as a sound teacher, he could occasionally be found on the conservative preaching circuit. Earlier this year, however, he came under intense criticism and was dropped from several radio stations when, during a recent program of Truth for Life, he offered a scenario where a Christian woman called in saying her grandson's about to marry a, quote, transgendered person, which is either a man who has transitioned to a quote-unquote woman or a woman who has transitioned into a quote-unquote man, and wanted to know if she should attend the wedding. Noting that people may not like the answer, Alistair Begg said that as long as the grandson knew that she believed it was sinful and that she does not agree with it, she should attend the ceremony, even buy them a gift, because if not, her absence will simply reinforce the fact that she is judgmental and critical. After being excoriated online, he doubled down on the position. Alistair Begg said in that announcement that there was nothing precipitous, nothing precipitated his decision to step down in a year's time, but the timing certainly seems a little bit more than coincidental, we would say. Read the rest over at protestia.com. Next headline at Protestia: New United Methodist Church bishop praises the denomination's transformation into a large non-governmental institution. Okay. The UMC, United Methodist Church, continues to be a simmering cauldron of every vile and aberrant theology conceived in hell, with a recent op-ed by the Reverend, quote-unquote, Kristen Stone King being a prime example, a, quote, married lesbian and newly appointed bishop in the denomination's western jurisdiction, just a few weeks ago, replacing Karen Oliveto, I believe that's how it's pronounced, a famed bishop who for years denied the divinity of Christ. Stone King is arguably worse than her predecessor. You can read this over at protestia.com. Hat tip to the Juicy Ecumenicism for pointing us to this information. But she says that she concluded this speech in which she announced this by saying that she invited all into furthering transnational communities that champion spirituality, compassion, and dignity for all persons. Okay. Anyway, next headline at protestia.com, a related one: ultra-liberal United Methodist denomination disbands after 3 years for hilarious reasons. This, I believe they disbanded almost a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago at this point, but calling themselves the Liberation Methodist Connection, the LMX. And you can see this. This is their, if you can see it over here, their website, I guess, is still up. Where they talk about all of the stuff they're for, gender expressions and sexual identity, religious or non-religious backgrounds, no matter what your incarceration status is, so on and so forth. This is their website, but it looks like from March of 2023, this announcement they put up on, I believe, their Facebook page, saying they reached out and to see what people's needs were, and that they're not in a position to provide those things, and therefore they're going to, members of the quote disbanded collaborate will continue to hold space on a monthly basis for a Stone Soup online gathering, and remain open to the movement of the Spirit for further development in engaged community, and so on and so forth. I think it's safe to say that there will be no movement of the Spirit for something as wicked as what this organization promotes. But you can read more about this for yourself over at Protestia.com. Next headline at Protestia: Episcopal priest claims Jesus has, quote, integrity issues and needed to grow beyond his original programming so he'd stop spewing garbage. Ethan Alexander Jewett is an Episcopal priest known by his online moniker at Jacked Priest, an avid bodybuilder in his spare time. He is the openly gay leader of the demonic lair St. George St. Barnabas Episcopal Church in Philly, in Pennsylvania, where he's been shacking up with his, quote, partner for 3 years. We have more links to information about this wicked denomination. In a recent sermon, Jewett took aim at Jesus' interaction with a Syrophoenician woman in Mark 7, where he told her, quote, "For it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." And she replied, "Even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." Where this guy said, what do you say here? It shows that Jesus is fully human just like us, because Jesus can learn and Jesus can change his mind. How many of us, as we've developed, have said and done things, held very narrow-minded perspectives? This is Jesus he's talking about, of course, that we regret now. And some brave soul said, "Look here, it's time for some truth-telling." He insisted that, quote, Jesus was a product of his society, his time, his place, his cultural grounding, his religious grounding, and that the verbal skirmish showed that, quote, even our Lord could be instructed, could be taught, could learn to grow beyond his original programming. Of course, we would recognize this as damnable heresy. Anybody that teaches such a thing does not know Christ and is on a one-way trip to hell. Read more over at Protestia.com. Last headline at Protestia for this intelligence briefing: Steven Anderson, his son, details vicious abuse and beatings, describing it as Steven Anderson apparently started kicking and stomping him into the floor and said he was going to kill him. Controversial Arizona pastor Steven Anderson's sons have begun speaking out against the firebrand KJV onlyist from Faithful Word Baptist Church in Tempe, Arizona, sharing what life was like growing up as his son, while also alleging vicious instances of physical abuse and beatings. Anderson, known for his rigorous, independent, fundamentalist Baptist theology, hatred of Calvinism, the infamous "pisseth on a wall" clip, and open glee at the thought of homosexuals being killed, at one point had the dubious distinction of being banned from 34 countries, including every English-speaking developed country. 2 years ago, his videos were purged from many social media sites for violating the terms and conditions, while his YouTube page has uploaded nearly 7,000 videos with over 100 million views. In a wide-reaching interview with the Dead Domain, his third oldest son, Isaac, who we've written about after he came out as a self-professing, full-fledged Nazi, details life growing up under the notorious preacher. Let's see if there is a clip in the article here. This is a Steven Anderson clip that you can see it here, but I'm not going to play it because it'll probably get this video yanked down. I don't know what's on it, but you can go over to Protestia's X account and see it for yourself. A large portion of the interview with his third son centers around a chat log that caused controversy in the church and was never made widely public. You can read a lot of the quotes from it. This is apparently, we'll play this clip for you. This is apparently the accusation of abuse, saying after being discovered to be involved in a private group chat with other church kids where they made sexual and racist jokes, Pastor Steven Anderson's son alleged his father just started kicking and stomping me into the floor, said he was going to kill me. We have a few different clips here, but let's watch this one real quick.
Well, and you mentioned that there were some messed up things you went through. Are there any of those that you'd want to talk about?
I mean, just excessive physical punishment, more so. For example, the group chat, when he said he beat us, he definitely was not exaggerating. The good news is, I don't know if you remember, my father's not a very large man. He's about 160 pounds. So he definitely, it wasn't for lack of trying. I didn't get injured or anything. So basically what happened was I was sitting at the kitchen counter on like a wooden bar stool, basically. And when he heard about this, I was sitting at the counter. He walked in through like the front door. I didn't hear him come in because, there's a bunch of kids coming in. He basically like ripped my chair backwards. So to crash, like the chair shattered. It was like a WWE style entrance, basically. He made his entrance and just started kicking and stomping me into the floor. He said he was going to kill me at the time. He kept trying to provoke me to fight him because I think it was only me and him there. Like none of the kids were around for some reason. I forget where they were. They were at the park or something. No one was around. In hindsight, I believe he was trying to provoke me into, like, say, bloodying his nose so that he could, if he sent me to the hospital or kill me, he could claim self-defense. So, which obviously I do jiu-jitsu and kickboxing. I would break him in half if I ever fought him. I didn't care, though, because as I said, he's not very big. Despite him stomping and kicking and trying to slam me into the tile and concrete floor, he couldn't cut me, couldn't do anything because he's not that big or that strong. I can bench press more than he can squat. So
okay, well there you go. You can go watch more. There's more parts of that thread over at the Protestia X account. We have them, at least two of them, embedded in the article at protestia.com. You can decide for yourself. When asked whether or not Isaac had any memories of his father being loving or supported, he hesitated a bit before finally answering that I don't know about loving and supportive. I mean, we definitely had some fun times because with him, when he's not losing his blank, he could be a pretty chill guy to hang with if he's not angry or flipping out. But read more over at protestia.com or head over to the Protestia X account to see more. Thank you very much for joining me for this edition of the Intelligence Briefing for September 11th, 2024. Stay tuned to protestia.com for all of your latest in Christian polemics and discernment news. We'll see you again next time. As always, Semper Reformanda.